Welcome to the How to Adult podcast, where we learn all things adulting. My name is Travis Walker, and I'll be your host. In today's topic, I'm calling the funny business because we've got a stand-up comedian coming on the show to tell us about his journey to becoming a stand-up comedian and the monetization surrounding this industry. Off air, he said that I should consider being a stand-up comedian, so I'm particularly fond of this guest. He's very kind to me. So get excited and buckle up because we're about to learn how to adult. We are back for another episode of How to Adult, and we've got a very special friend of mine who's making it in Washington, D.C., and he's making it as a comedian, a stand-up comedian. Some people might be scratching your head. Travis, why do we have a comedian on How to Adult? Well, that's a good question. And the answer is I believe that we have something to learn from anyone that is actively pursuing their dreams and getting some success. And I think that you're doing just that. So I'm so excited to have you today.
Oh, thank you for having me, man. It is definitely a pleasure. Always
Yeah.
good to see Travis, man.
Well, that's awesome. I'm glad you feel that way. I'm glad you feel that way. And so I think that it would be inappropriate if we didn't start with some type of joke.
Oh yeah.
Do you think
Uh,
you can tell us a joke?
I definitely can, man. I'm gonna do one that I've been trying to write. It's my favorite joke that I've ever written, but it has not been working. Okay.
Well, let's
uh,
test it out right here.
yes, I'm gonna bomb right here on right on How to Adult podcast. All right, let's. All right. So I think it's cool that guys are more confident in their fighting abilities than they actually are skilled, right? Like Travis, like if you had to fight a superhero, what superhero do you think you could beat?
I'm gonna go with Dash.
Dad? Oh, Dash from The Incredibles.
Yeah.
Dash
Yes.
is that Dash is crazy. He killed like 16 grown men on the movie.
That's true. I don't know why I picked Dash. It was just the first one that came to mind.
He's a kid. I get it, man. I would have chosen a kid too. It's but it's good though. I mean, like it's okay. Like I think it's good that we don't live in a superhero world because like you have a wife, bro. Like our wives are more confident in our fighting abilities than we are, like just as you think you could beat Dad, she thinks you could beat somebody like Superman, bro. She'll bump into Superman at the gas station and be like, hey,
Uh-oh.
my boyfriend, my husband is gonna come come beat you up. She just gave him time to suit up, bro. But like
Oh
I
no.
personally think I can beat up Superman. You know, everybody knows everybody knows one of his weaknesses is kryptonite, right?
Right.
But a lot of people don't know another weakness of his is magic. And look, you got to fight Superman. I'm there with you, bro. All we got to do
Yeah.
is pull a quarter from behind his ear. Superman's going. But that's the joke, bro. It has not been working, and it is up.
That's I love it. I'm also easily amused, but I'm a big fan.
Thank you. I appreciate it. I
That's
appreciate it.
awesome. That's awesome. Thanks for doing that and starting us off with a joke. And so in general, I'm fascinated with business and how people make money throughout the process. And so I'm fascinated with how someone A becomes a stand-up comedian, and then B, how do you make money in this field? Or I'm interested in both. So let's start with your story in the sense
Okay.
of how did you go from not a stand-up comedian to a stand-up comedian?
All right. So it started in 1996. Let's start at the beginning. No, I mean, let's see. And I've pretty much always been a funny person. Like it sounds very narcissistic. But like people will be like, "Hey, you should try stand up."
Okay.
And we lived in Beaumont. There weren't many opportunities to do stand up, so you don't see stand up. You just don't think about it, right?
Right.
Joined the Navy, got out, moved up here to the DC area, right? There's a lot of stand up going on. You could probably hit 4 to 5 open mics a night. So
Wow.
yeah, and Javier Martinez, lived up here. He worked at the Baltimore Comedy Factory. Shout out to Javier. He was like, "Hey,
Yeah.
I'm thinking about doing stand up. I work at this comedy factory and I see people do terrible every day." And he was like, "I can get up there and do terrible." And so, and I was like, I've been thinking about it too. So I started a class and I was like, "Hey, Javi, when are you ready to go to an open mic?" Um, and he gave me a date. I show up to the open mic. Javi did not show up, and that's that's how I started. Shout out to Javi.
You got ghosted and you had to do it on your own.
Yeah, man. It's been amazing. It's addicting. It's addicting, for sure. So,
Yeah.
I love it. I do. And B, how do you make money? Right.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of different avenues to make money. I'm an IT as well. So like,
Okay.
yeah, I haven't quit my 9 to 5 yet, but I also, I do get revenue from stand up. Um,
Yeah.
so there's many ways to do it. Like I said, I don't know each and every single way, but I do know a lot of the main ways. One way
Yeah.
is producing shows. So producing a show would be like you're booking comedians, right? You book comedians, you get a venue. Venues they look for events to bring people and make money.
Right.
So the comedy show is essentially selling alcohol and drink
Yeah.
and food. So yeah, you have a deal with the venue, and the venue pays you, and you can also make money off of ticket sales. Uh,
Okay.
that's that's one way. Another way, just be really funny. It's easier said than done. Yeah, people will book you on paid shows, as long as you have like a trusted reputation of making people laugh.
Yeah.
So the bigger shows, the bigger the show, the more money you make. Um, and we do a lot of shows, to be honest. We do a lot of open mics. We try to stay sharp because it's like going to the gym. Uh,
Right.
and the richest comedians are the clean comedians. They don't talk about like certain subjects, and
Huh.
they don't curse at all. So
Interesting.
it'll be comedians that you may have never heard of or that you have, like Carrot Top. Carrot Top is one of the richest comedians, and he may not be funny to a lot of people, or comedians may bash him for using props.
Yeah.
Um, but he's one of the highest paid because he can get hired for corporate gigs. He could get hired at churches. He could get hired anywhere, and do comedy in front of children if he needed to.
I
Yeah.
wouldn't have thought of that. Or I wouldn't have guessed that, I guess, that the clean comedians would be the most uh, revenue generating comedians. But as you explain it, it totally makes sense, right? You widen the market of how many people or how many organizations can hire you. That totally makes sense to me.
100%. And with the corporate gigs, they're honestly more secretive. Like a lot of people don't know. Like Jamie Foxx still does stand up, but he just only does corporate gigs because they pay him so much.
Right.
Yeah,
Right.
it's usually not filmed or it's not put out everywhere. So it's like, okay, these people are doing corporate gigs. And touring, just like any other entertainment, touring is a big thing. So when you go on tours, you sell tickets at clubs, and they give you a percentage of ticket sales or drink sales or bar
Yeah.
sales, I would say.
Wow, that's incredible. So you've given us a few avenues of how stand-up comedians make money. I'm interested, just curious if you're willing to share, which avenue have you made money through?
Being funny.
Just
I
being
have not. Yeah, I have not gone on tour. I'm still considered a new comedian. I'm 2.5 years in. So
Yeah,
they say, however many years you are in for stand up, that's how old you are. It's like, so basically, I'm a 2-year-old stand up comedian, and it's an old man's game. It is. So the older
yeah,
guys are the ones that usually get paid more, and the funnier guys. They're outliers, like of course, like Matt Rife.
right, right. I'm
Yeah.
gonna ask about him later because he's blown up. I guess I'll also kind of bring him into this question that I'm about to ask in the sense of I think that there are different types of comedians. You've even brought up that there's different types in terms of clean and not clean. And I'm there's also the conversational ones that are like Matt Rife, who just makes fun of the audience. I think it's hilarious. And there's
Mhm.
also like Kevin Hart that just go up there and talk and are hilarious. Am I picking up on categories correctly by just being a consumer, or are there different types of comedians out there?
So kind of like Kevin Hart, I do talk about like my real life.
Yeah,
So just past events, current events. Like one big part of being a comedian is living life and having to see things and write jokes.
yeah,
Um, yes, but there are observational comedians that talk about everything that's going on in the world. They can look at if you watch Saturday Night Live, you can look up the weekly update on the news sketch, right?
yeah.
That's observational comedy. They
Okay,
You just have a team full of people that are writing jokes about what's going on in the world,
yeah.
which is amazing. Uh, oh well, sorry, that's another huge way to make money as a stand up writing. You
Okay.
write jokes, yes. So I I had a teacher. He used to be a writer for one of the late night shows in the 90s, right? He signed a contract, a year contract. He made $4,795 a week to
Wow.
write jokes all week. And if even if they didn't use his jokes, he would still get the same paycheck, and he did it for like 6 years. So yeah,
That's
that was the minimum that they made. So if you're a writer on a late night show or any show as a comedian, you're writing jokes. You can write a story, but that's their job is to write jokes, and that's like a very lucrative way to make money as a stand up.
that definitely makes sense to me because like there's ghost writers for music, so like it totally
Right.
makes sense for ghost writers for comedy as well. I
Mhm.
wouldn't have thought it, but it totally makes sense.
There's stand up comedians that punch up the president's speeches as well. Anytime the presidents say something funny, it's it could be written by a comedian.
That's that's pretty cool, man.
Yeah.
I'm learning a lot already. That's why we do subjects, all kinds of subjects on how to adult. But earlier you mentioned that you're in IT and you served in the Navy. And so I'm interested in the balance of all that in the sense of you have a 9 to 5 job and
Mhm.
you have this aspiration to be a successful stand up comedian. How do you go about balancing your job, what's funding your life, and then the aspiration of being a successful stand-up comedian?
Okay, easy. Yeah. So 9 to 5 is there's no shows. Yeah. No, yeah, no shows. Usually the shows at the earliest they'll start at 7 o'clock.
Yeah,
I drive about 30 minutes to work, 30-minute commute. Have time to change or do whatever I need to do to get ready, get myself in the mindset of doing stand up. I would say the difficult part is going from an IT job, saying like using one side of the brain and then using another, like my more of a creative side. Um,
right.
like I don't get more of a chance to write jokes as like someone that did something else, like a more creative job would.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
So, yeah. But I mean, what my 9 to 5 is my first investor, right? So it's funding my comedy career right now.
Yeah.
Yes. So one day I'll be able to quit my 9 to 5. But for now, for the next few years, I'll definitely be there working hard.
Yeah. Yeah. If your boss is listening, you're good. You're good, my friend. That makes sense. And I imagine most shows are on probably Friday and Saturday.
So I do shows every day of the week.
Really?
Yes, open mics. Just to try new stuff, like that Superman joke, right?
Yeah.
New stuff, old stuff, stay sharp. Like I said, it's like the gym. So if I were to not go the whole week, I would be very rusty.
Right.
Yes. So in my set, I try not to waste any words. I try not to use or like anything. So it's every word is tailored to the joke.
Wow. It's an art.
It very much is very art craft. Arts and crafts. But it's that was a bar, man. Nah, but it's one of those things that it's very cool because people trust you with their emotions. When they come to
Yeah,
the show, they're like, no matter what kind of day they're having, they could be having the worst day of their life, and they're like, I need someone to make me like laugh or
yeah,
make me think all of this is worth it, you know? And so that's what we do. And it's the coolest thing to me.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And I'm not sure if this was just out of the blue experience or not, in the sense of I know you just did a show in Beaumont because my parents were there. They said you did a wonderful job.
Oh, I hope they liked it.
Oh yeah, they loved it. They loved it. Do you travel for shows very often, or was that just kind of a out of the blue type of thing?
So honestly, I was shout out to Comedy 409, by the way. Miguel Carter and Nikhil, those guys are running a great production.
Yeah,
I hit them up because I know they run shows in the Beaumont area, and I was coming home to actually surprise my cousin for his birthday.
yeah,
Uh, and I knew about a month out, and I told them, I was like, "Hey, is there a show that I could get a guest spot on?" So
yeah.
a lot of comedy is asking. So you do have to reach out to people and be like, "Hey, like I can send you a tape of me doing stand up to show you I'm actually funny. I won't embarrass you or your production." So yeah, that's what I did. I hit those guys up, and they said, "Okay." Miguel was like, "There's not a show, but we can make one."
Oh
And
wow.
yeah, that I appreciate those guys forever for that. So, um, and that's what it was. 170 people came to the door. You know, it
Yeah.
wasn't online sales; it was all door sales. 170
Wow.
people. We had a great show. It was amazing.
Yeah, and two of them were my Walker parents. Um,
Yes,
that's pretty incredible though. Just a month out, yo, let's do a show, and they put it together, and 170 people showed up. That's incredible. Uh,
that just speaks to how great those guys are. You know, they
yeah,
107, and that was their first time at that venue, by the way, the Soggy Bottom Saloon. Yeah,
yeah, that's incredible, man. And
yeah,
I kind of connect to that story in the sense of a lot of the podcast world is just asking,
yeah,
every single guest that comes on How to Adult, it all starts with me asking, hey, I think you have valuable experience. Will you come on and share?
yes,
Because we all need to learn how to adult. But that is how I connect to that story, in the sense of, if you want something in life, you got to go out and ask for it, because no one's just going to give it to you.
exactly. I honestly, that's been the hardest part for me. I'm very much laid back and like I don't want to bother anybody kind of person, and
Sure.
for at least for the first, sorry, give me one second.
Yeah.
At least for the first few months, I was definitely like, or not the first few months, the first 2 years. Same thing. First, yeah, for the first 2 years, I was like, all right, I think my jokes will speak for me, and people will see me making people laugh, and they'll put me on shows. And that's not the case. Everybody is not going to see you. People have different shows to do.
Yeah.
And yeah, so it's one of those things you have to learn how to ask for help. You can't be headstrong, and it's something that I'm still learning, but doing better with, most definitely.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm curious, is this a path where having a mentor is really powerful, or is this something that you kind of have to bootstrap? How is that process?
A little bit of both, right? Um,
Yeah.
because a lot of people they looked up to certain stand-up comedians what when starting. At least people up here, I talk to a lot of stand-ups. Obviously, there are a lot of people that just love stand-up, and they're
Yeah.
like, I can tell you every stand-up comedian. This is who I look up to. This is who I look up to. I I didn't have that certain stand-up that I looked up to, so I was like, okay, somehow I have to be funny and write jokes. So I did. Once again, I did take a class to teach me how to write jokes in a
Okay.
stand-up sense, and it didn't help me too much on stage because I was afraid. I was. It was a scary thing. Not only is it public speaking, you know, it's like if I can public speak or I could talk to these people all day, but if I don't make them laugh, I still didn't do well.
Right.
So yeah, it was one of those things, and one thing my teacher did tell me, hey, watch the greats. So watch the greats, and when before you have a mentor, because like until they know you're funny, established comedians, or if until they know you have something or you want to be in the space for a long time, established comedians won't reach out and grab, or try to
Yeah.
mentor, uh,
Right.
because they don't want to just waste their breath.
Right.
Uh, but yes, it is a great way to have a mentor. Most people get big from um having that connection with someone, and that person, like that higher person, like a say like a Dave Chappelle would take someone on tour, and that's like their opener, or an Amy Schumer takes someone on tour, and they're her opener, and then
Yeah.
they start to get known through that, and then they become her feature, and then now they're headlining in places, and they're like, oh,
Yeah.
I saw that person on tour with Amy Schumer or with such and such.
Yeah.
um and it's definitely a mentorship, because I right now I can see someone doing an hour of stand up, and I'm like, wow, like 20 minutes is a long time. So, but they're doing like an hour very easily, and then they may do a different hour like the next time I see them, and I'm just like, how did they do that?
Yeah.
Obviously, it's writing, but they'll like let you know, like, hey, this is how I did it, or like you can become friends with that person and you write together. uh,
Okay.
they're like, hey, I'll help you punch up jokes, you help them punch up jokes. It's one of those things.
Yeah,
Mhm.
that's really great. And we've talked about kind of different paths to success in this realm, if you
Mhm.
will. And so, how do you see your path to success? I think you've already experienced a lot of success as it is. But how are you going to get to that next step? What is that desired outcome with stand up comedy?
So I mean, the next step, I want to be able to get into all the clubs and be passed at all the clubs in the DMV area, right? And to do
Okay.
that, I have to continue to send tapes and network with people. I basically have done a show, or know all the comedians here.
Okay.
Uh, but it's just one of those things that the bookers have to somehow, like, all right, I have to catch the booker at the right time, shake their hand, and
Yeah.
be like, hi, my name's Trey, I would love to perform at your venue. um,
Yeah.
yeah, it's all about it's a hustle. It honestly is. It's a lot of networking. It's a lot of being in the right place at the right time. Um, but I think to get to the next level, I just have to keep writing and keep doing what I'm doing, honestly, and keep showing up. I think it's a consistency thing, just like the gym. I
Yeah.
keep talking about the gym, but it is one of those things.
Yeah, that's awesome. I really like that, and I'm curious on what you love most about stand-up comedy. You know, now that you've done it for 2 years, you're still a toddler in the comedy world, as you said.
Mhm.
Uh, what do you love most about it?
Learning. I love learning, and it's you always have something to work towards. In
Yeah,
comedy, the closer you are to perfection, I guess in anything, the closer you are to perfection, the further you are from it. You know,
yeah,
uh, I I watched a comedian called his name's Dave Attell. Dave Attell has been doing comedy for over 35 or maybe 35 years, right?
wow,
Um, he did so well. There were people running around laughing after like at all of his jokes. And I saw him
yeah,
get off stage, and he was like, I suck today. and he was and I was and
okay,
it was it was one of those things, because he was just like, I wanted this joke to get more laughs, or I wanted this to get a different reaction. And it's always something new. There's always something new. It's like he could tell an old set from 1990, but he just writes something new, and he's just like, I want a better reaction. So it's one of those things, and I guess like I have two favorite, or I say two favorites. They're kind of similar. It's the thing that I said, like people trust you with their emotions, right? Like
Yeah.
yeah, the reason, like a big reason I was ever funny in the first place, is because if no, if someone's having a bad day, like I would like to be, or it sounds selfish, but I would like to be the person like, hey, let's see if I can make them smile for just 1 second, you know? So it like laugh, smile, whatever. It's one of those things that it's I don't know. It's a beautiful thing because you can see people walk in, you see like the weight of the world on their shoulders, and
Yeah.
you flip it. So
Yeah. That's
it's
really good. And I think I recently saw that you are going to be an MC for some type of event. I'd love to kind of know more about that and how it factors into this conversation about stand-up comedy. Is that more like a getting your name out there type of thing, or is this stand-up comedy? What's going on with that?
like hosting.
Yeah, I thought I saw you were hosting something.
Ah, yes. Like, so I do produce a show. It's Left Turn Comedy. I produce it with two other people, but
Yeah.
at every stand up show there is a host. So the host
Okay.
is a comedian. It's just one of the spots on the lineup. So the host is
Yeah.
first. Naturally, the host does about 10 minutes. Your job is to warm the crowd up, and after your set, you bring up comedians, and you're a cheerleader for all the other comedians.
Okay.
Yeah, so like I'm bringing them up. I'm like, it's Travis, man. He used to he used to give us the morning announcements at Westbrook. That it's kind of like that. You start the day out. You set the tone for the show, and
Yeah.
kind of like give them a glimpse of what they're gonna see. And it's good to have a good set as a host, but it's not the most important thing. The most important thing is to make sure that the crowd is warm and that they like the rest of the comedians more than they like you.
Yeah, wow, that I love that. It's a little selfless, so
Mhm.
I'm totally down with that. I'm also curious about this journey that you've been on, and what challenges have you faced, and how have you overcome those challenges?
Oh yes. The challenge is especially like certain times like you don't feel funny, and
Okay,
everybody gets that. Even if you're super, you could be the funniest person in the world, and they always have times where they're just like, is this is like, is this for me? But um, one challenge for me is I think for everybody, you see your peers do like bigger shows, bigger and bigger shows, right? Um,
yeah,
and it is not a jealousy in a sense that they shouldn't be there. It's like I want to be there with them, and
yeah,
just enjoy the moment with your peers. So it's one of those things you're just like, okay, what do I have to do to get to that next level as my peers did?
yeah,
Because in comedy, there's gonna be people that you start with, and they're gonna shoot up. It's just a fact of the matter. It's you don't know who's gonna happen to, and it could be like this. It could definitely shift, but it's one of those things that it's cool to see. I honestly want to see all my peers win. Uh,
yeah,
like everybody that I started with, it'll be cool in 10 years later. I can name somebody and you'll be like, you started with those guys? And I'm just like, yeah, man, it's pretty crazy. But I think a challenge is pushing myself to get to where they are.
yeah,
To be like, because like I said, I would like to be in all the clubs. I have peers that I started with that are in all the clubs, you know. So
right,
we talk, we're friends. We're just like, all right, like they're like, all right, Trey, we need to get you in here, And I'm just like, okay, like how do I do that? He was like, man, I wish you were here with me. And so it's just one of those things, you know. It's like I said, it's not a jealousy. Always happy to be there. It's just look within, like, okay, what do I need to do?
Yeah. Yeah,
And
that's really good.
I think everybody's timing is their own, right? So
Right.
it's like I can't rush anything that maybe I wasn't supposed to do yet. You know, God's timing is
Yeah.
God's timing. So yeah.
That's so good. That's so good. We brought up Matt Rife earlier, and why I wanted to blow or talk about Matt Rife is because he really blew up on social media and really, got a lot of people interested in him based off of his social media presence. I'm curious if you have a take on how social media has changed the game in comedy specifically.
Oh yes, in kind of two ways. I think it can, well, in Matt Rife's case, it definitely helped. Uh
Yeah.
because but a lot of people don't know Matt has been doing comedy since he was 15 years old. So he blew
Oh
up
wow.
at 25. So he'd been doing comedy for 10 years before
Wow.
anything really popped off for him. You know, the year before he blew up on TikTok, he couldn't get a spot on this festival in Canada called Just for Laughs, which is
Wow.
one of the biggest comedian festivals. He bought a ticket and sat there as an audience member a year before, um, 2022. In 2021 he did that. So
Wow.
my mentor is best friends with Matt Wright.
Oh, sweet. That
Yeah,
totally
yeah.
makes sense.
Yeah, so I've like seen Matt. Matt is a very cool guy. He'll pay for everything because he's like, don't worry about it. But the year before I met him, he didn't have any money. He was getting driven around here just to do shows, you know. So he's still very down to earth. I would say that.
Yeah.
But yes, with social media, it's hurt and it's helped because it's helped a lot of comedians that may not have had that that exposure. You know, like
Right.
there's a guy named Nate Jackson. He's from Seattle. Uh, people. I mean, I guess people hear about the Washington comedy scene, Washington State. But it's not as big as a New York or Los Angeles or something like that. And he'd been on tour. He owns his own club out there. It's just he didn't have the exposure. And Matt Rife actually told him, "Hey, bro, you should start a TikTok." And now
Yeah.
Nate Jackson's blowing up. He posts his tour dates, and his tour dates sell out in 2 days.
Yeah.
And it's a good thing. Like he'd been acting, he'd been doing stand up for almost 20 years now. So
Yeah.
it's one of those things that that helps. I think it hurts when maybe we have newer comedians, right? So like myself, um, we look at those guys and we're like, I can do that. You know,
Yeah.
like you know, it's like me looking at I don't want to say LeBron. I'm not 6'8". It's like it's like me looking at Saquon Barkley right now, like run the ball, or Ezekiel Elliott run the ball and be like, I can do that the same way, you know.
Yeah.
Uh, and like maybe I just picked up a football, you know. So
Right.
it's kind of like that to where those guys put in that work, and the jokes that they may post on social media may have been jokes they've been working on for years, you know,
Right.
and it's like a fully cooked joke. So we do have newer comedians that they won't have a fully cooked joke and they'll post it, and yes, they will still work on it, but that's now how everybody sees that joke, as an uncooked joke. So
Yeah.
like it's out there forever, and it may not be as funny as they think it is. Like it's just
Right.
they're just putting a premise instead of a joke online, and it won't blow up. Or maybe it will blow up and people are like, oh, okay, like they're okay. You know, like
Yeah.
it's cool. Or they'll do crowd work. That's another thing. Matt has an hour worth of jokes. He does crowd work. uh, he's good at it. He's good.
Yeah.
He's very, very good. But it's one of those things that people will come and heckle the comedians at at the crowd because or at the show because they're just like, I want to be roasted. We're like, hey, we're just trying to tell jokes. Like we
Yeah.
don't fully want to, you know what I mean, like roast you all the time. We would like to
Yeah.
tell jokes and be like, okay, this is why people think I'm funny. But people will be like, hey, like I have something to say. And we're like, this is not how comedy works. But
This is
yeah.
put your hand down.
Yeah, like, but there are jokes that have crowd work in it. Like when I asked you what superhero, do you think you like
Yeah.
you could have gone back and forth with me if you wanted to. That's perfectly fine.
Yeah.
Uh, and it's just minimal, but people have whole conversations and they want to talk about their lives. They want to talk about themselves. It's fun. It's all fun, honestly.
Yeah.
We're I just think of it. We're just up there at a lunch table. That's it.
Yeah. Yeah. That's super good.
Yeah.
So coming on the end of the show, I'm just curious if somebody's out there and wants to be a stand-up comedian. What's that final piece of advice for them?
Oh, never stop. You
That's
never
really
want to
good.
be known as the comedian, the person that used to do comedy. Uh,
Hmm.
you have people like you'll have a great set, and people be like, "Oh man, I used to be a comedian. Like that was cool." And you're just like, "Oh, okay, that's what's up." You know, like you don't know what you're
Yeah.
supposed to do with that information because like no matter how good or bad you are, you will get better. Um,
Yeah.
you will keep uh you will keep getting better. Your writing will get better. Like if you don't feel funny right now, because there are certain topics that I don't touch because I know I'm like I'm not funny enough yet to write to write about this. Like it'll click in my brain in a few years, and then I'll write about it.
Yeah.
Whereas like I could try to go for like super deep subjects, but I don't because I'm just like okay, like I want to make this tasteful. I don't want to, you know, not be funny when this comes out, you know. So
Yeah.
yeah, it's one of those things to where um yeah, just never I say never quit and always write. Always write. Even if you say the same type five at an open mic or a club, always write because it keeps your creative juices flowing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm curious when you're in the thick of it, right? And you're trying to do this, how do you differentiate between a half-baked idea or not, you said not fully cooked earlier, and something that, okay, this is ready to test out, and maybe this is fully developed. How do you categorize
You
your
test it
your
out.
writing?
I mean, like if it's a premise, it's crazy. Comedy is the only art form where you have to try it out live to see if it
Yeah.
works. Uh, like in music, like musicians could hear it and they'll just be like, "Nah, that ain't it." But like
Yeah.
if you have like proper joke structure, right? It's which is a setup, a misdirect, and a punchline. If you
Yeah.
have that in your joke and you're just like and it's funny to you, then try it out. Like I always say I try it out 6 times. So
Okay.
yes, I'll usually do 3 or 4 mics on a Monday, and then I'll do 4 on a Tuesday. If it doesn't work at that second one, but like that one joke, because it's no more than 20 to 30 seconds of me telling the joke, right?
Yeah.
Um, so it's I'm just like, okay, maybe I should rewrite it, come at a different angle, do a different punchline. I don't give up on like the premise, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Uh, you could like re-angle the premise, but yeah.
That's really good. Really good advice and an interesting journey overall. So I hope that if you're still listening, that you are inspired and always know that we are going to continue to learn how to adult together. Thank you so much to my friend Trey Solo for coming on the show and helping us all learn how to adult together. To stay up to date on all things How to Adult, make sure that you follow at How to Adult TW on Instagram and Facebook. And remember, we're going to learn how to adult together. See you next time.